We want to first, though, say happy birthday, 242nd birthday to the United States Marine Corps. So congratulations to everyone out there. I also want to say happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. We have the honor and privilege of working with many veterans, especially in our business. And they are special people, and we thank them very much for protecting our nation all these years. We also would like to, we're excited to get Cygnus launched again off of our Antares rocket. We do want to thank our Antares launch vehicle provider and our brothers and sisters on the Antares program, our NASA customer, certainly the team here at NASA Wallops who continue to do a great job getting us ready for the launch, as well as the team from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport and Virginia Space for their support of the mission. So we're looking for a great mission tomorrow. We've got a lot of cargo to deliver, crew supplies, equipment, and of course those scientific experiments. So let's take a look at a video showing the processing of Cygnus as it's getting ready for launch. So here you can see the OA8 service module. This is integrated and tested at our facility in Dulles, Virginia. That was shipped here by truck to Wallops. Here you can see our pressurized cargo module, which actually gets delivered directly from our supplier in Italy. And here, after we've loaded the initial load of cargo, we actually mate the two modules together, and that's when we actually have a Cygnus. We get the spacecraft ready for moving from the H100 facility to the V55 facility, where it's fueled and the NanoRacks CubeSat deployers are installed. And then eventually we'll get moved over to the HIF, where the spacecraft will get removed from the shipping container, rotated over to the horizontal position, and it'll get mated to the Antares launch vehicle. Once we're mated, we'll put in some final cargo load. On this mission, as Dan said, we're going to be launching about 7,400 pounds of cargo to the space station. Among that cargo is a student experiment sponsored by Orbital ATK in partnership with Higher Orbits, a nonprofit company based right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So that is very, very exciting for us to take part in. Here you can see the launch vehicle fairing getting moved to encapsulate the spacecraft. Of course, we say our temporary goodbyes to Cygnus because we're going to see it again once it approaches the station. Here you can see once we're about 10 minutes after launch, the spacecraft will separate and we'll begin the process of deploying the solar arrays, which are built by our facility out in Goleta, California. And then once we've done our orbit raising, we'll phase with the space station, and we'll start the process of maneuvering the spacecraft underneath the space station for the rendezvous and eventual berthing. The spacecraft is controlled from our Mission Control Center in Dulles, Virginia. It's monitored extremely closely by our friends at NASA, the ISS Program Office and ISS Mission Control Center in Houston. They keep track of it every step of the way. And when we're about 10 meters below the ISS, the arm will come out and grapple us. And here you can see the arm maneuvering us where we are actually docked to the space station. Once that happens and the safety checks are completed, we'll open the hatch, or not we, but the crew will open the hatch. The crew will begin unloading the cargo and start refilling the module with trash, including, and then we'll also take part in the Tango Lab experiment. Once we're done, we will get unberthed from the station, pulled away, released from the arm, and we'll begin the next part of the mission where we release CubeSats, several CubeSats from the NanoRacks CubeSat deployer on the outside of Cygnus. We have 14 flying this time, which is a record for Cygnus. And then we'll re-enter the atmosphere and complete the mission as we re-enter over the South Pacific. I would like to take this moment to express how proud we are to name this mission in honor of Gene Cernan. Mr. Cernan, a veteran of one Gemini mission and 2 Apollo missions, as well as being the last human to have his feet on the surface of the moon. He was truly a pioneer for America's space program, and he was actually one of the early supporters as Orbital Sciences Corporation came into existence. And so we are extremely proud and honored to be able to name the spacecraft the SS Gene Cernan. So we are excited for this mission. It's going to be a beautiful day tomorrow morning. I think the Antares team is ready. The Cygnus team is very ready. So we'll look forward to a great day. And with that, turn it over to Kurt.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And thanks to all of you for being here. On behalf of the Antares launch team, I'd like to say we're very excited to be back here at Wallops with our NASA and Virginia space partners. I'd like to recognize Dale Nash and the rest of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport team from Virginia Space, who operate and maintain Pad 0A for us. They've done a really outstanding job. I'd also like to recognize Bill Robel, John Dickerson, Jeff Reddish, and the rest of the Wallops Range team for the outstanding support we received from them in planning and preparing for these launches. So thank you all for helping us to get to this point. I recognize some familiar faces here. Many of you may have been here last fall for the OE5 mission. Just a word about that. That mission was the first flight of our, what we're calling the Antares 230 configuration, featuring RD-181 engines on the first stage. That flight was very successful. We took all the data that we collected in video from the launch, and we performed a very thorough data review. And we found no in-flight anomalies, which is great news. So it was a very clean mission, and we're really excited about the excellent flight performance of the Antares 230. And that's the same rocket we'll be flying tomorrow on the OE8 mission. A note about pre-launch processing. Our team down here, we have a permanent staff of about 35 folks. They worked really hard to get ready for this launch as early as August. And so since then, we've been maintaining readiness for whenever NASA needed us to launch. Cygnus came over to the HIF, as Frank said, on the 27th of October, followed by rotation and mate to Antares. Final cargo load was completed just earlier this week on the 7th, followed by fairing installation, and then we rolled out to the pad very early yesterday morning. So since then, we've attached the pad, we've gone vertical, and just this morning we executed our major verification test we call the combined systems test, and that's basically where we turn on all the emitters from the rocket, and we verify all the interfaces between the rocket, the pad, and the range, and that's all complete and looked really good. There is one issue we're working on the pad. There's a misbehaving nitrogen regulator on the ground side that supplies nitrogen for some of our purge systems. That's being swapped out with the replacement unit. We expect that to finish this afternoon. For launch day, the Antares and Cygnus teams will arrive on console at the control centers. There's a couple control centers we use at 1 a.m., and then we will execute a 6-hour, 15-minute countdown, which will start at 1:22 a.m. Fuel loading will begin about 1.5 hours before launch. We'll be simultaneously loading liquid oxygen and kerosene into the stage 1 tanks. The engines are ignited at L-0 to an intermediate power level. After an automated health check is performed on each engine, the engines are throttled up to full power, coincident with release of the hold-down mechanisms at the base of the rocket, and also retraction of the transporter erector launcher, which we still have attached as a umbilical mast. Liftoff will actually occur about 3.5 seconds after engine ignition when thrust exceeds mass. In terms of the launch sequence, as Frank mentioned, it's about 9 minutes total, a little over 9 minutes. We'll lift off and fly straight up for about 25 seconds, after which we'll pitch over and head down range in the southeasterly direction. Stage 1 will burn for about 3.5 minutes before main engine cutoff, or MECO, is commanded. After MECO, stage 1 is separated, and we enter a coast period for about 30 seconds, after which the payload fairing and the 1-2 interstage are separated. Stage 2 is then ignited and burns for about 2.5 minutes. After that, we're in orbit. Cygnus is separated. Our target orbit for this flight is about 190 by 290 kilometers. From there, Cygnus uses its very capable propulsion system to raise its altitude and adjust its phasing to rendezvous with the ISS. So, anticipating questions you may have about the cold weather forecast for tonight, I can see everyone brought their coats, so you're semi-prepared. But I want to let you know that our air temperature constraint for Antares is 20 degrees Fahrenheit, so we don't anticipate any problems with being able to launch tomorrow due to the temperature. The rest of the weather forecast looks very favorable, with clear skies and moderate winds both at surface level and at altitude, which bodes well for the launch. In fact, the launch weather officer gave us less than 5% probability of violation this morning on his latest report, which is very good. All right, next I'd like to show a short video that walks through some of the processing steps for getting Antares ready for launch, and which shows off some of our outstanding local staff here at Wallops. It also includes rollout and liftoff footage from prior missions as a preview of the launch tomorrow. Can we cue that video? Okay, thank you. Finally, I'd like to share some sad news with all of you that our former president and chief operating officer of the company, Mr. J.R. Thompson, Jr., passed away this week, just Tuesday evening, at the age of 81. Prior to joining Orbital in 1991, J.R. had a distinguished career at NASA, where he served as director of the Marshall Space Flight Center and as deputy administrator of NASA. During his time at NASA, J.R. helped the agency recover from the Challenger accident and get the shuttle back flying again. At Orbital ATK, JR was an inspiring leader for the company and for me personally, and he was a major contributor to the success of the company and its many aerospace projects. On the CRS project in particular, JR was a driving force behind the development of the Antares rocket, the Cygnus spacecraft, and Pad 0A here at Wallops. We couldn't have done it without him. So please join me in paying homage to this great leader. He was truly one of a kind and will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. We'll now go to Camille Elaine with the International Space Station Program Science Office for an update on the investigations launching to the space station.
Thank you, Tabitha. Good morning. It's great to see a packed house here, and it's my pleasure to share with you some of the science that will be flying tomorrow on the Orbital ATK CRS-8. We are really excited to be launching, as Dan said, about 1,900 pounds of research supplies and science that will support almost 300 investigations that will be conducted during Expedition 53-54. These experiments span all the scientific disciplines that ISS supports, including human research, physical sciences, biology and biotechnology, technology demonstration, earth and space science, and education. We do this research on ISS for the purpose of advancing our scientific knowledge through discovery, for enabling future human space exploration through NASA-sponsored research, for fostering space commerce, a commercial marketplace in low Earth orbit, and also research that benefits improving the quality of our lives here on Earth, both sponsored through the ISS U.S. National Laboratory. Later today, we'll have the What's on Board briefing, where some of our principal investigators will have the opportunity to highlight in detail some of their exciting and groundbreaking research that includes the ECAMSat, the E. coli antimicrobial satellite, which is a mission flying on a 6U nanosatellite deployed from the ISS GEM module, and will investigate the effects of microgravity on the antibiotic-resistant E. coli bacteria. The researchers hope to understand whether bacteria is more resistant to antibiotics in space and what controls that phenomenon. This could help them design effective countermeasures for protecting astronauts on deep space missions. But it also has an impact to public health issues here on Earth, since some strains of E. coli actually cause bladder infections or UTIs, urinary tract infections. This investigation is co-sponsored by NASA and the U.S. National Lab, specifically NASA Ames Research Center and Stanford University School of Medicine. Then we have two exciting technology demonstrations sponsored by NASA's Space Technology Mission Directorate that look to advance cube and small satellite technology as a viable platform for both science, for exploration, and commercial missions. The first is the integrated solar array and reflect array antenna, which is this new hybrid system, solar system and antenna that will demonstrate high bandwidth Ka-band CubeSat communication capability for space applications. This is about a 5-month mission that demonstrates about 100 megabit per second data rate, up from about 9.6 kilobits per second that they get now, and elevates the antenna technology from a technology readiness level of 5 to possibly a technology readiness level of 7. Then there's the optical communication and sensor demonstration. That will be the first demonstration of space-to-ground laser communication with cube satellites. It will also demonstrate small satellite proximity operations, laser ranging and tracking, and propulsion. This mission is advancing the use of these cube satellite technology for optical communication and for relative position measurements between two satellites. Both of these capabilities have not been previously demonstrated, so groundbreaking research. And then we have a suite of education experiments designed by students from across the country as part of the Go for Launch Higher Orbits program and the Magnitude IO program, both sponsored through the National Lab managed by CASIS. The students' investigations range from looking at the effects of microgravity on the life cycle of mealworms, the biological nitrogen fixation process of microclovers, which is a well-known legume, and also the life cycle of a model organism for plants called A. thaliana. These experiments were designed by students ranging from grades 6 through 12, and it really demonstrates the use of the space station as a platform that engages and inspires the next generation of scientists, engineers, and explorers. Finally, we are launching hardware that are being pre-positioned for upcoming investigations, such as animal habitats for Rodent Research 6, gas bottles that will enable the advanced combustion in microgravity experiments, which is the next evolution of space combustion investigations, and resupply items for 3D printer manufacturing device, just to name a few. So these investigations are just a sample of the science that's enabled by tomorrow's Orbital ATK launch, and that continues to contribute to the advancement of human space exploration and to also improving the quality of our lives here on Earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Next, we have John Dickerson, who has more information, I believe, on that weather forecast everyone is watching so closely.
Yes,
He's the test director with Wallops Flight Facility.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Proud to say that Wallops is ready to support operations. Both our local sites and instrument station is ready, and the downrange sites in Bermuda are ready. We completed our L-1 checks and CST tests this morning, so we are primarily green to start launch operations tomorrow. I have one slide. Would you please bring that slide up? This speaks earlier about the probability of violation, and those are the categories that we use to assess it. So we are green. We're less than 5% chance of breaking or having a violation. That goes for tomorrow, as well as Sunday.
Okay. Thank you, John. With that, we'll open up questions to those in the audience, on the phone line, and via social media using the hashtag AskNASA. If you have a question, please raise your hand. Wait for the microphone. We have 2 mic handlers in the room. Wait for the microphone to reach you, and then we'll call on you. Just 1 moment, I'm sorry. Okay, we're good.
Jason Ryan for Spaceflight Insider, and this one goes to Kurt. Kurt, last fall-ish, you guys launched the OA5 mission with the RD-181. Was there any modifications to the Antares 230 that you made after noticing how that one left pad OA, or was it pretty much, this is what we're looking for, and we're going to move right on with OA8? Thank you.
Sure, thanks for the question. Yeah, no changes to the flight design, the trajectory. There are a few tweaks in the minus count in terms of when we start some purges. We back some things up by 2 minutes just to give ourselves more time to get through some countdown steps, but that's really it. So they really were spot on. We fire each of the engines for a full flight duration in a hot fire acceptance test, so we gain a lot of confidence in our ground testing, so that by the time we get to launch, we're very confident in the performance of the engines.
Great. Jason did this, but just a reminder, if you do have a question, make sure you identify to whom you're addressing the question, as well as waiting for the microphone. I think we have one here in the front.
Jeff Faust of Space News for Frank. Is the plan to fly out the rest of the CRS missions on the Antares from here? And what is the planning right now for the CRS-2 missions that you have under contract?
Yeah, so our baseline plan is to continue to fly Cygnus on Antares. we are ready to respond to our customers' needs if they should require something differently. But for all of the rest of CRS-1 and so far for the CRS-2 missions, we're planning to be on Antares.
We have a question in the second row. Sorry.
Hi, Ken Kramer for Universe Today, Northeast Astronomy Forum, for Dan and Frank, I think. Can you talk about why this stay of the Cygnus is relatively short? I was wondering, is it maybe related to the SpaceX? You have to get it out of the way. And Dan, can you talk a little bit more too about this commercial crew test that you're going to do with the Cygnus
Sure.
after you detach it? Thanks.
Let's see, we do have some constraints on different vehicles on our Node 1 and Node 2 nadir berthing ports. I believe actually we're in a good configuration with Cygnus on Node 1 nadir, and then a SpaceX came up subsequently to Node 2 nadir. But in the configuration we're in, there's a lot of products that have to be turned over ahead of time. And so for the configuration that we're in with SpaceX, that analysis and all that work assumed the Cygnus would be gone at that time. And so that's primarily what's driving December 3rd. And we can do all of our, again, with a crew of 4 on the USOS side, that's not a constraint for unloading all the cargo, repacking the cargo, and getting the crews ready to go to release Cygnus and then perform this GPS test. And so what we plan to do there is maneuver, once we unberth, but still holding on to Cygnus, we plan to maneuver it to the top of Node 2 zenith, is what we call it, and hover it within about 2 feet of the actual berthing port. And what that's going to do is simulate a commercial crew vehicle that will be there. Again, commercial crew vehicles being there for a 6-month stay at a time. So then we plan to do, different variations with additional vehicles coming to the International Space Station. There was some concern we may have some, what we call our SIGI system, GPS blockage, while we have a vehicle up top there. We've ran some tests there before. It's shown good performance, so we're just trying to characterize it a little further. And Cygnus offers a rather significantly sized module, and so we should get good blockage or good performance depending on how the test results show out. I think we're holding it there for 12 hours, and then the subsequent day, bring it back down to the nadir position, and then release. Cygnus will go fly off and do its, actually height adjust and do its nanorack deploys. But that's the main intent. Again, to check out our ISS GPS performance. With a vehicle there and another vehicle coming, that other vehicle coming needs to be in communication with us. So that's what we're really trying to check out.
Thank you. Our next question is from a NASA Social question.
Thanks. Okay, so Project Habu wants to know on Twitter, are there any personal effects from the astronauts' families aboard this flight, presents for the holidays, that type of thing?
That'd probably be a question for me, Camille. I don't know if you know. I can tell you, on every mission, we have crew care packages that we send up from family members. I could also tell you I think it's the first time we've flown what we're calling there's a brand name for it, but there's a long duration cold box, I'll say, where it has significant hold time to keep things cool, maybe 10 or 11 days worth. And we have packed that full of, I'll say, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits. So the crew's going to get some treats when they open up the hatch. So that'll be great for them.
Great. If you have a question in the room, please raise your hand and wait for the microphone to get there. We'll go ahead and take another question from the NASA Social.
So at Jack Squeeze wants to know, what does the T in T-10 stand for?
T stands for time, I believe.
Yes. Launch time.
Now, to further confuse the situation, we actually use an L clock and a T clock. So you may hear the launch conductor, Adam Lewis, talk about an L clock and a T clock. The L clock is absolute. You start it, and it's going to get to 0 at 7:37, unless we reset it to go into the 5-minute window. But we will target the opening of the 5-minute window. That gives us the flexibility to delay up to 5 minutes, for whatever reason. There's a T clock that we run that has 2 built-in holds planned for about 10 minutes duration each. So the T clock will initially be in advance, and then we'll hit the holds, and then we'll slow down and sync up with the L clock at the end. So that's a little more information than anyone really needed to know, but if you hear L minus or T minus tomorrow on the countdown, that's what that's referring to.
It's test. You're too young.
We're actually going to take one question now on the phone line, and then we'll come back to the room. Go ahead.
Your line is open.
Hi, I'm actually not sure which of you would be best equipped to answer this question, so I'm wondering, how many people along the U.S. East Coast will...
I heard 6 people.
Unfortunately, we're having a little difficulty with the phone line, so we'll go to a question in the room and see if we can figure out the phone and then come back to it.
Early in the morning as well. Will it kind of get in the way of seeing the rocket launch?
I don't believe we were able to copy on that question because of phone quality in the room. So we're going to go to a question in the room now, toward the back of the room, and we'll come back to the phone line once we figure that out.
Peter Coles, WSKB. For Frank or Dan, is there any significance that the launch slipped a day to Veterans Day and that the CERN will be launching on Veterans Day?
I should have mentioned that earlier. Our backup day is on Sunday, and so we have no constraints against that. Quite honestly, the vehicle traffic on the International Space Station is wide open for the next 10 to 11 days, I'd say. And I say that because we haven't probably looked out further than that. So Saturday, backup day on Sunday. If we happen to go to the Sunday, that would move our berthing date from Monday till Tuesday. And so that is just fine for our space station operations and our payloads that are inside Cygnus today. They can ride right on through that.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add is the original launch date I think you're referring to is November 10th. We moved it a day because it just works out from the orbital mechanics point of view that we actually get there faster launching a day later than if we launched on the 10th. It would have been, if we launched on the 10th, we would have got there on the 14th. By launching tomorrow, we actually get there on the 13th. So it was really for the science payload to get them to from loading into Cygnus to the space station as quickly as possible.
Thank you. We have a question again from Jason Ryan, and then we'll come back to the front row.
Jason Ryan with Spaceflight Insider. This one's for Frank this time. First question, Frank, is if there would need arose for a late-minute load, is there the capability at Pad OA to handle that? And the second one deals with Sapphire. You guys carried out 2 scientific experiments, Sapphire experiments, with Cygnus on prior missions. Is there anything planned for OA8 after it disembarks from the ISS? Thank you.
Yeah, so for the first question on the CRS-1 design that we have, we actually do all of our late load in the horizontal integration facility, and then we roll out to the pad. As we get closer, I think our final mission on CRS-1, and then as we get into CRS-2, we've modified the process in some of our designs to be able to load some late cargo at the pad. So that will be a capability that we'll roll out beginning on OA11. I think Sapphire, Dan, you want to?
Yes, our intent, in fact, it's our plan, is to continue on with Sapphire at the start of the CRS-2 flights. So what is that, CRS-13?
08-12.
Or 08-12, yeah. And so we'll pick up Sapphire. They're actually making some lessons learned that they're applying to the next generation of that experiment. And so that will require some additional modifications inside the Cygnus, but our intent is to continue on with Sapphire operations. I want to say there's 3 planned in the CRS-2 time period. Mm-hmm.